So this is a review of the new JVC GY-HC500. Catchy name, but it was first announced at NAB in 2019, and just like us coming out onto the streets of London to film, it's taken a bit of a while to come back out. And I thought I'd tell you about this camera because it's turning out to be quite an interesting product in an already crowded market. So this is the JVC GY-HC500. What are my 3 good, 3 bad? 3 good, first of all. I really like the autofocus. So the fact that it can do face recognition, which is great for sporting events or for journalism, something that's missing on the Panasonic CX350. So that's number 1. Number 2, the focus on streaming. I think it's not too big of me to say that the future is probably live streaming now. So how can you get these cameras easily into a remote studio? Things like auto FTP for some of those files or those proxies so that people can be editing quickly. I love that. Number 3 is actually the codec. So although it doesn't have H.265 or JVC codec support, doesn't support NDI either in terms of NewTek's version of IP streaming, but what it does have is ProRes, and using these cartridges, which are SSD drives, you can record ProRes straight from that camera. So 10-bit 422, okay, it's still a 1-inch sensor, so it's still a camcorder, but that for me is really going to speed up some of my workflow when I'm editing in software like Final Cut Pro. So what are the 3 bad for this camera? Well, I think probably the first one is the weight, but I'm comparing it to the Panasonic CX350, which certainly feels like it might be about 1 kilogram lighter. Having said that, I would probably sacrifice that amount of extra weight in order to have the autofocus, because I really like that feature for some of the new stuff that I do. Also, heavier camera actually can be useful if you are able to carry it, but it's certainly not a light camera. It's also a bit bigger and a bit bulkier than perhaps some of the other camcorders that I'm used to. It's a little bit more like the Sony Z190, which means it doesn't fit that well in my Manfrotto pull-along case that I like to use, but I turned it on its side and then it seemed to be fine. Ergonomics as well, I noticed with this SSD drive, it's actually quite hard to get into the back if you've closed the little patch on it. It's like a little pop-out piece of plastic. If you've got it in there, you almost certainly can't open it when the battery's in. But that actually might be a kind of safety device to stop you from ripping out an SSD drive when you've still got the camera powered on. So I suppose the big question is, would I buy this camera? And I think I would be tempted. I'd certainly like to play with the colors a little bit more, see if I can get it to match my Panasonic cameras. But the streaming side of it, being able to control the bit rate that I'm sending is actually quite a big one, because you never know what bandwidth you're going to get in different environments, even if you're using something like a live view unit. So I really like that. I love the idea of auto FTP. Not really had to use that myself, but I can see the use case for that for things like news or sending proxies for quick editing. ProRes, I mean, that's great, because normally my Mac computer would be spinning away, converting everything. So I did like that. And I think this focus on connected cam is actually the future. Streaming is the future. So the integration with your mobile phone to be able to monitor the camera and see what's happening and get things like the stream key and the stream URL into the camera, really, really impressed. So in terms of this £3,000 price range, I think JVC finally might be onto a winner. So that's it from me, Ralph Cochrane at event.video. Don't forget to hit subscribe, give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't and you've got a comment, leave it below and I'll try and get back to you.